Hello everyone out there in internet land. This is Dirk, or Lycan 101, and this video is going to be house rules for role-playing games. Before I get into what house rules I have for running role-playing games, I want to talk about, do you really need house rules? Simple answer is no, not really. You don't need house rules. The role-playing game experience already has enough rules that you don't really need to create your own rules. However, I will say, house rules develop on their own as you become a more experienced DM or player who then eventually becomes a DM. It's just certain things that you pick up on that you feel like altering for the sake of how you play the game. So let's get right down into a few house rules then. These are some of the things that I do that like I said, I've evolved over time. Number one, experience points for player involvement and good role playing. What this does is helps me bridge the level gap at times. So let's say, for instance, after a adventure, all the players are 200, 300 experience points off from leveling up. While it was my intention that they should have leveled up at the end of this adventure, however, there wasn't enough experience points, or they missed an encounter that caused them to not hit that next level. By having this house rule, it allows me to say, well, okay, this person did really good today. They were really involved in the story. They role-played really well. They got into their character. I'll give them that extra experience so that way they can hit that level. Another rule that I have is natural 20s. Anytime you roll a natural 20, it's always going to hit, and it's always a critical. It's always bugged me about the original rule for rolling a natural 20 that it didn't always amount to a critical. I mean, you're rolling a 20-sided dice. You have a 1 in 20 chance of hitting a natural 20. That's rare enough as it is. Yeah, I know there's going to be some times where a person can roll 2 20s, 3 20s back to back, just because that's how it'll happen sometimes. But to me, rolling that natural 20, that's like that, oh yeah, that awesome moment. Look, everybody, look, I rolled a natural 20. It's that moment where everyone goes, yeah, natural 20, around the table that everyone's excited about, particularly in combat. Everyone gets excited. But then to have to say, I rolled a natural 20, now confirm that natural 20. Wait, what? I have to roll again to see if this is a critical? That's just not something that I've ever felt was good. So, if you roll a natural 20 in my game, it's a critical. Now, I'm not changing critical threat ranges here. If you have a critical threat range of 17-20, and you crit on you roll a 17, that's a chance for a critical. So you still have to see if you crit. But if you roll a natural 20, always critical. Origin stories. This is a video that I did a while ago where if a character chooses to, upon creating their character, they can choose an origin story. This is just a little brief paragraph, a little snippet that they add to their player background and provides automatic player buy-in to not only my world, but the story, and it gives them something personal to do within the world. And I find this really helps to get the players active and create backgrounds, and it's something mysterious that each character has. Let's see, what else can I talk about? Well, it's not so much as a house rule, I guess, but more of a DM rule. If a player can describe and explain their action to me, no matter how crazy it might sound, and this idea makes sense, if they can explain it rationally, then 9 times out of 10 I will let them do it. For example, I had a character who basically equivalated out to an alchemist. We weren't playing Pathfinder. but he wanted to create a flamethrower. And I told him, okay, go in to the equipment guide, look at everything on the list, tell me what you're going to use, how you're going to put it together, and basically give me the schematics for this flamethrower that you're going to build. How are you going to do it? And he went in, he found a list of everything that he would need, including prices, how much it would cost, and then he purchased it all, and I had him do a roll, like a, create magic device or whatever equivalents to that kind of check. I had him do a check, and I set the DC for it because, let's face it, I'm the DM, that's what I should do. And this is going to be the first time the item has ever been created, so it's going to be difficult. So I let him roll, and he rolled successfully. So I let him create a flamethrower because A, he could explain it to me rationally, B, he provided me with a description in game terms using in-game items that would allow him to create a flamethrower. So that's just what I do as a DM, is I allow that creativity. I allow that spark of interest. So if a player tells me they want to backflip off of a wall into a hill giant and grab it at the chest and scale it up like Shadow of Colossus, the game for the PlayStation 2, go for it. I'll set up a roll for you. See if you can make it. There's going to be consequences to these if they fail, but I feel that it provides a more grandiose effect, a sense of more of that heroic action for the player. Next, another house rule I do is called unique class options. It's something that I'm expanding upon as I grow as a DM and see what players choose for their character class. And maybe there's something I want to tweak within the class. So for example, I have my very own version of the Beastmaster Ranger. Now I know what you're thinking. There's already a Beastmaster Ranger in the Pathfinder Advanced Player's Guide. That's the archetype. Well, I don't really like how that archetype fits, and so I made my own version. And you can have, I believe it's up to 3 or 4 different pets. You have all these different pack abilities, and it's just something that you trade levels out like an archetype from all the books, but I built them my way. I built them to my standard. Now that's not to say my standards are better or anything than what has already been built by Pathfinder and Paizo, but it's just something that I felt fits more to my style. What else can I talk about? There's a couple more. AC, so armor class. So if you're fighting a monster and you tie, say I'm attacking the monster and I tie the monster's armor class, normally, that I'm aware of, people usually give the tie to the attacker. I disagree. If there's a tie, the win, if you will, goes to the defender. So in this case where I'm attacking the monster, I don't hit because I tied. The defender has the higher armor class. And I know what you're thinking. That automatically makes things a little harder to hit, because if I tie the AC and win, then I'm hitting on that number. But I think that if the creature has an AC of 14, that means from 14 below you can't hit me, not from 14 above can you hit me. It's saying that this is the pinnacle that I am strong at. I'm strong all the way up to a point of 14. I'm not weak from a point of 14 up. That's just how I view it, that it makes combat a little bit more interesting when you're like, oh yeah, I'm there. Not yet you're not. You're this close. You missed it by a hair's breadth. It creates this sense of urgency a little bit. The last house rule I want to talk about is handling experience. On the experience chart, if you look, I believe it's page 30 or 31 in the Pathfinder core rulebook, there's a fast, normal, and slow progression chart. What I like to do when I run games is take the first 5 levels fast, the next 10 normal, and the last 5 slow. And the reason I do this is because when you take the first 5 levels fast, you get this sense that your characters are gaining a bunch of experience, a bunch of knowledge, because they're going out at level 1 and learning things. So they're learning quickly, they're accumulating quickly all these skills, and they realize, oh, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And then after they reach that point of level 5, the next 10 levels is, okay, I've got this basic knowledge, now let me expand on this knowledge. So it's their learning curve, if you will. So you've got a quick learning curve in the beginning, so it just quickly rises. And in the next 10, they learn better, and it's going a little slower, so they're learning more about themselves. And then the last 5 is for that real mastery of all of that they've accumulated. So you're going really quick, you're learning, just all your basic skills, and then you learn a lot about yourself, you gain a vast amount of knowledge, and then at the very end you're mastering everything you know. And it fits in that story element, but in a gameplay element, it gets you quickly through those first 5 levels where everyone's like, oh, I know what's going to happen in these first 5 levels, I get this, 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 and this. Because generally, campaigns or adventures only take you to the first 5, 10 levels, unless you're doing an adventure path or a really long campaign. So, in order to bypass some of that, bypass some of that normalcy, that makes more sense. To bypass some of that normalcy, or to keep your players from getting complacent, that's what I do, is I take those first 5 levels fast, so that way the players go, yeah, look at that, we're there. Now I can change it up from time to time if I want to create a really long campaign. I could say, okay, we're doing it all slow, if we're going to do a campaign that's going to last for a long time, or if I want players to use these characters in several different adventures, like full campaign adventures. But it all depends on the situation, but generally I use the first 5 fast, next 10 normal, last 5 slow. So those are generally all of the house rules that I use that I can think of right now. If anybody else wants to throw out what kind of house rules that they use, I'd love to hear about it. Hit me up in the comments or post a video and just let me know what everybody else does for house rules. But this has just been a quick little bit of house rules that I do, so that way it can give everybody else, starting DMs or even veteran DMs, I guess, a look at what somebody else does for house rules, and maybe you can add a couple of them to your list. So this has been Lycan 101. Thanks for watching.